Hello and welcome back. Today we're talking about my top 100 games, number 50 through 41. I'm wearing my President 45 hat because that's the number that's in here today. And we're going to talk about, first of all, my number 50, which is Magic Maze. Magic Maze is a new game in general. It's a light little game where you're working together with a couple other people and you represent some explorers who, after going on a dungeon adventure, lost all their money in the tavern and have gone to go and do some shoplifting at the Magic Mall to try and get some equipment back. And it's an interesting game of sort of nonverbal communication because each person can do different actions. For example, one person can move people forward, one people can move people up escalators, and you're trying to communicate with what people should be doing without ever saying anything. There are moments when you can talk, but there's also this annoying red pawn that you can kind of put in front of somebody and go pound, 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 please do your thing. And it's just this light game. It takes just a few minutes to play, and I've won it a few times, but there are also other ways to make it more difficult in case it's too easy. But it's a fun game. It's a little bit frantic, a little bit chaotic, and definitely not for everyone, but certainly for me. That is my number 50, Magic Maze. My number 49 is a game that's been on my list, I think, ever since I started it. It's been a little bit higher in the past, but this is Keyflower. Now, Keyflower is probably the world's best auction game. I don't know why. I just love how the auctioning works in here, because you've got 3 different colors of meeples, and you need them to do different things, and you're sort of bidding on these tiles, and once you bid a meeple, somebody else can outbid with 2, and you can also activate these tiles, and whoever gets it gets all those meeples back to their city. And you're building this little city that in front of you, this village, I guess, and other people can activate it too, and it's, you know, the points are maybe secondary. You're trying to upgrade all these buildings to make something better, but it's just a really interesting set of mechanisms. It has a bunch of expansions, and I've not played with most of them, even though I bought them all, because I have a problem. But Keyflower is a great game. It's a lot of fun, and it works with just about any number of players, and it's one that I would gladly play again anytime. Number 49, Keyflower. My number 48 is a game that I just adore. I just gave away my second copy of this because I had the second edition and I got the third edition, and I was keeping both for no obvious reason, but this is, Fury of Dracula. In Fury of Dracula, one player plays the role of Dracula, and the other player plays the role of several Bram Stoker characters who are chasing Dracula all across Europe. And Dracula moves in secret, and they're trying to find him. But unlike some games, when you find Dracula, you don't just catch him and the game's up. No, he turns around and attacks you. And he's a vicious beast, and he can try and bite you, and it's sometimes kind of hard to kill Dracula. It's the combat system in this game is a little bit complicated. That's probably the only part of the game that's a little bit hard to get your head around the first time, is just how the combat works. But the deduction and the figuring out and finding Dracula's trail, whether you play the role of Dracula trying to hide or the hunters trying to catch him, Fury of Dracula is a great hidden movement game, and I guess appropriate for Halloween when we're filming this. That is my number 48. My number 47 was one of my favorite games from last year. Beasts of Balance. Now, Beasts of Balance is a very simple concept. Essentially, you have this pedestal and you're trying to stack these oddly shaped animals on top of it. And were that just the whole game, it wouldn't even make my list. But it is a beautiful integration of a board game into an app, because you've got this app that you have open, and when you put the beasts on this pedestal, they appear in your app. And you're trying to keep them alive and keep their health up by doing different things, and you can mix 2 beasts. Once they're in there, you can crossbreed a shark and an octopus and get a sharktopus, or whatever else the game will allow you to do. And you can also, if you're worried about that, sometimes you lose points, but you can preserve them if you put down a tile or a piece called the distraction, and it distracts you. Basically, you have to do all these extra things while you're stacking the beasts, and it's just a fabulous game. It's not very long. It's not a very good game for more than one player. It's really kind of a one-player experience, but it is a fabulous one-player experience, And I'm excited to see the new version that's coming out, which is supposed to allow duels. But if you're looking for a great family game or a game that you can play all by yourself, Beasts of Balance is just phenomenal. My number 47. My number 46 is a new game from this year. I've played it a ton already, though. That is The Godfather. I remember the first time I played this, maybe it was the second or third, I played with some friends, and after we finished, they were like, oh, let's play that again. And so then we put on the Godfather theme just on loop. We found it on YouTube in like a 10-hour loop, and we just played that for the whole time. We were role-playing this a little bit. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the movies. I think they're fine. But the game itself is just really fun. You're all playing a different family, and you're trying to get control. And so you're, sending out your thugs to shake down a business, and you're trying to control territories, because when you control the territory, you get bonuses when people do different actions. And you're completing all these jobs, and basically you're getting all this money, but only money that you actually stash in a suitcase counts at the end of the game. And so you're trying to find ways, all of a sudden you have all this money, and you can't keep it from round to round, so you're trying to find ways to get rid of it so that you can keep it for another round in your little suitcase. Maybe I'm not describing it very well, but in play, it's just a lot of fun. That is my number 46, The Godfather. My number 47, oh, sorry, that's not how numbers work. My number 45 is a small game, Seven Wonders Duel. Seven Wonders Duel, as the name indicates, is a two-player game. It's kind of a two-player distillation of the larger, more expansive game Seven Wonders. Now, I like Seven Wonders fine, but it's not on my list. But the two-player version absolutely is. I can sit down with this game and play with just about anybody. It doesn't take long. The rules are simple. There's not a whole lot of icons you've got to memorize. And there's 3 different ways to win, right? You can win by points, just the basic way. Or you can try and, if you're behind on points, you can sort of push the envelope and go to a military victory. Or you can go to a scientific victory by collecting different symbols. You can decide how you're going to win it. And you've got really good decisions you're making. There's an expansion with a bunch of different gods, and I like that expansion a lot. But these different cards have a lot of different symbols on them, and it's a little bit hard to teach to new people. But the basic game, and the expansion's not that hard, but the basic game is just a lot of fun. It is my number 45, Seven Wonders Duel. My number 44 has fallen a lot. This game used to be, I believe, in my top 10. And that game is Ashes. Now, when I say it's fallen a lot, I just mean I don't play it as much as I used to. And that's not because I don't like it. It's because, it's hard to find somebody to play with around here. And it's really a two-player game, and there are some other two-player games that I like a little bit better. But ultimately, this is another one of those mage versus mage games. And you've got this interesting mage, and you're rolling dice. And these dice are just an ingenious mechanism in the game because they sort of control what you can do. But no matter what you roll, you can always make it into something that you want. It's impossible to get an impossible roll. You just sometimes have to spend a little bit in order to get to where you want. And all the different decks are very different. The company, Plant Hat Games, has not been that great at getting their expansions out as much as they had promised initially, and that's maybe hurt some of the life of the game. But one thing I have to say about the game is this has the best artwork of any game. I know in my other videos I was complaining that a game is ugly. This game is the exact opposite of ugly. It is gorgeous. And such love and attention has been put into every detail inside this box from a visual standpoint that it's just flawless. I always look forward to getting more, and I look forward to somebody that comes around that knows how to play and loves the game, because I think it's a lot of fun to play. The competitive scene is a little bit maybe outside my wheelhouse, and so I prefer to play it maybe in a draft variant. That's kind of my favorite way to play. But even if you're just playing base decks with a new player, Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn is really a great game, and one that I believe everybody should try. My next game is number 43, and that is Five Tribes. Five Tribes now has 3 expansions, although one of them hasn't really made it over here yet. and one of them is just a couple of cards. But the game is really a very Mancala-like game. You've set up these little figures on a board, and you're trying to move them around, dropping off a spot, one in each spot, and then trying to match a final color and take an action. Initially, I wasn't sure that I liked the game that much, but I started playing it a little bit more, and I really got into it. In fact, I think the problem is that I played it with 3 or 4 players the first couple of times, and this game really shines with 2. With 2 people, you're not waiting for anything. You've got more control, and you're just doing things, and you're getting points, and there's a bunch of different ways you can go about winning in this game, and I really like that. The pieces are great. The component quality is high because Days of Wonder always does a good job on that. But it's a bit of a thinky game, and sometimes my brain can't handle it. But I really enjoy every time I play. That is my number 43, 5 Tribes. My number 42 is another great game, and this is a game I play all the time. This is Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride doesn't really need an introduction. Everybody knows this game. It's been around for years. It's a great intro game for new players. It's sort of a rummy-like mechanism where you're collecting different sets of cards and trying to play them in order to connect routes on a board and complete different goals that you've got. There are a bunch of expansions, a bunch of different maps. There's even a silly expansion with an alien and a dinosaur. And they keep coming out with more. And each map does different things. It gives you new destinations to go to, but it also adds some small different little rules. My favorites probably are the Pennsylvania map and the India map, I think, because for some reason I just find the extra rules in those are just the most fun. I have played it hundreds of times with many, many different people, and even people who aren't the biggest fans of board games can get behind Ticket to Ride. It's a great game, and it's a classic for a reason. My number 42. And my number 41, to round off the list today, is Pandemic. Now, you'll see I have it in this big wooden box, because Pandemic came with a box that they promised could hold all the expansions. And it could, but then they came out with another one. And it no longer fit in the box, but Broken Token made this big old crate, and you can put it together yourself, and it stores everything really neatly. Pandemic is a cooperative game. In fact, it's not the first cooperative game, but it's the first one most people know about. And you're trying to save the world from an onslaught of diseases. There are 4 diseases in the base game, and then there's a 5th one you can add if you have the expansion. I love playing it by myself. I love playing it with other people. There's also the Legacy version. I've played through the Legacy campaign twice, and there's a new one that just came out. I've got it sitting downstairs waiting for a willing victim for the Pandemic Legacy 2, but they sort of take this to another level where you've got some more story. But even at its basic level, it's a lot of fun. It's a nice puzzle, and it gives you a good cooperative feel. There are also some sort of sister games. There's one about diseases in Spain, and it's called Pandemic Iberia, and then there's one with Cthulhu for whatever reason, and there's a new one about floods in the Netherlands. And, you know, those are fine, and I like them. But really, basic Pandemic with its expansions is kind of the way to go. And it is a game that I'm always looking forward to playing, and hope to play again soon. That is my number 41, Pandemic. Well, that's all for this particular installment. Next time we're going to continue the top 100 by going through my number 40 through 31. And I've got those games sitting over here in the wings ready to talk about, so I'm going to stop now and go on to those. Have a good day.